What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Legitical Response. We cover political news. We keep you up to date and keep you informed with everything that the government does. Y'all, quick right off, y'all let me know in the comment section if y'all like the camera a little bit further away like it is right now, or do y'all like it closer how I have been having it in recent months. Just let me know down in the comments right quick. Yes, no, whatever. It don't really matter. But what's up, everybody? How the hell's your day going, by the way? Yeah, we talking about the government because that's what we do here on this channel, right? We discuss stuff the government does. We read out the news and we put the news through the logic test because we find out all the time the mainstream narrative machine, aka the corporate press, lies to us. So we need to know those lies. If those lies need to be exposed, that all needs to be laid out on the table. Logical inconsistencies need to be brought to light, and we need to bring this to the attention of the corporate press and let them know that, hey, look, your ratings are failing because you're lying so damn much, and if it wasn't for people like me, sometimes we wouldn't find out the truth, right? X has been a great purveyor of truth on these days. Of course, it does also have a lot of lies and misinformation, disinformation, and all that other stuff. But, you know, stuff is very verifiable true these days that the corporate press lies about constantly, all the freaking time. And it's outright insane. But let's not get off onto a tangent. And let's get into today's story right quick because we need to cover some stuff, y'all. Yeah, the Senate is in crisis right now. And yeah, that's what we're talking about, the Senate. But we're going to talk about a couple of different things that the Senate is doing. Senate votes to overturn Biden highway emissions rule with support from red state Democrats. Oh, some bipartisanship going on right here, right? Well, some Democrats aren't actually completely insane. They do hold some insane views, but, you know, for the most part, like I said the other day, most Americans do have a rational thought process, and they can rationally think about things sometimes. Some people might not be the smartest of people. Most politicians are corrupted and serve the interests of the lobby instead of serving the interests of the American people or the state that they represent. But they do have rational brains sometimes, and sometimes they can look at a situation, look at a rule that was put in place or a law or whatever, and say, you know, screw all this partisan politics BS. This is going to hurt people. And with this federal highway emissions rule, yeah, that's going to hurt a lot of people. You know, that's going to cost money to implement, right? And to enforce or whatever. And right now, we don't really have the spare money to do that. We're spending in a $1.7 trillion deficit, right? So that means that we're having to print or slash borrow money to do all kinds of stuff, right? And we've gone over it in other videos, all the ridiculous stuff that the government pays for. All these little earmarks. There were like 3,600 earmarks in the appropriations bills that were just passed, right? Like, why are you putting earmarks in appropriations bills? These appropriations bills are supposed to be for government funding, right? They're not supposed to be for gender studies in California or for figuring out if kids like playing video games. You know, $1.5 million to incentivize kids to play video games. Like Rand Paul says, I think we'd be better off spending $1.5 million to disincentivize kids from playing games. But, like, you know, $1 million to Martha's Vineyard Hospital. Like, really? You can't give that money to a hospital, say, in some poor town somewhere that needs it, that could use it? So a place that, you know, couldn't give people masks during COVID, right? Like why are we spending money in places it doesn't belong? And that's what this whole climate agenda, right? It's like climate alarmists, they say, oh, well, we're damaging the climate, right, by putting all this carbon dioxide into gas emissions, fossil fuels being burned, all this stuff. So, right, so now, because the climate scientists have came out and said, yeah, we're damaging the planet, we're causing global warming, all of a sudden, we've got to halt any sort of development in our nation, right? Like the World Bank essentially they will not give loans to smaller third world developing nations. They will not give them any kind of loans for anything to do with fossil fuels, right? Like if Zimbabwe wants to open up a new power plant and it's a coal power plant, the World Bank won't give them a loan to help them do so, will not help them develop. So you're making more poor countries even more poor. They're getting even further behind, right? This should piss off the Democrats, right? This should piss off the toxic, compassionate left who loves, or I should say hates the damn wealth inequalities that we have in this country, right? The wealth gap, right? They should hate that. But yet they want to implement this so-called climate agenda, right? Because we're damaging the planet and we're doing all this to the planet, right? Well, instead of making people more poor, why not let's figure this thing out a different way? How about let's innovate our way through it? Let's figure out a way we can make gasoline-powered cars not damage the planet. Or how about recapture some of that carbon dioxide that we put into the atmosphere? But, that brings it back to another point, like how do we know that all this carbon dioxide is actually the cause for climate change, quote-unquote climate change, right? Heating up the planet. How do we know that's not a natural progression of things? Just because we know that carbon dioxide put into the atmosphere can cause the planet to get warmer, how do we know that it wasn't already naturally getting warmer, right? Like, this isn't the hottest the planet has ever been. We know this from geological surveys where they dig ice cores and do all this other research, right, to figure out what the climate was like say when the dinosaurs were around. Like, we found out that there was more oxygen in the atmosphere at one point. We know for a fact that there was a lot more carbon dioxide on the planet at certain points in its history. So how do we know that this carbon dioxide isn't natural, right? Just because car emissions are putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But, that you could argue that, yeah, it's an excessive amount of carbon dioxide, and I see the other side of it. Sure, I do understand that's probably the case, that humans are probably changing the climate for the worse, not for the better, and we do need to be good stewards of the climate. But this climate agenda BS is just running rampant, and it's damaging our economy. It's damaging people's pocketbooks, right, because of this stupid implementation of solutions, or so-called solutions, that they think are going to work, are going to fix the planet, and they've only shown negligible changes in the past 10 to 15 years, right? Negligible changes. That means it's not working, y'all. So how about let's come up with some better solutions, and just continuing to do the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity. You could call me insane, as a matter of fact. And let me know down in the comments if you think I'm insane for getting on YouTube constantly and yelling about the corporate press is lying to us constantly, the government's doing BS, and nothing changes, and yet I still keep yelling about it. Let's get into the story, because I'm going to burn a fuse or something in my brain. All right, check it out. The Senate voted to overturn a Biden administration rule regulating greenhouse gas emissions on federal highway systems Wednesday, with 3 red state Democrats joining every Republican. The rule would require local and state transit officials to set emission limits. It does not impose specific limits for those officials to set. Senators Sherrod Brown, Joe Manchin, John Tester, as well as Kirsten Sinema, were among the 53 votes in favor of Wednesday's Congressional Review Act resolution. The CRA allows a simple majority of both chambers of Congress to vote down a federal rule. Yes, this is a very good oversight policy that we have to strike down any sort of authoritarian rules that a president might want to implement. And I must say, it's not implemented nearly enough, because the Biden administration has been outright just rogue, I guess you could say. It's a rogue administration. Just look at everything they're doing across the country, right? With this stupid climate agenda BS, trying to force people to buy electric cars. That's BS. We don't have the infrastructure for that, right? They're wanting to subsidize, charging stations and all this other stuff. Well, I haven't seen any new charging stations in my area in a very long time. We only have a handful, like maybe 2 or 3, right? So if I go electric, I'm kind of screwed on where I can charge my vehicle if I just so happen to need to go charge it one day, like, for whatever reason. They want to subsidize all this stuff, right? Spending more money that we don't have in a deficit. We're having to borrow the money or print the money, diluting the value of the dollar, all for some lame brain fucking climate agenda BS that is unproven, right? And is actually only proven to hurt the people that are on a lower income bracket. That's the only people it hurts. Right, so they're just crazy, y'all. While neither Sinema nor Manchin are seeking re-election, both Brown and Tester face grueling re-election fights in November in states where former President Trump is heavily favored. The two have voted for multiple CRA resolutions targeting Biden administration environmental rules, including one last May to end a pause on tariffs on solar panel components. Transport is the single largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, which the Biden administration has pledged to reduce to net zero by 2050. Conservation group Evergreen Action blasted the vote in a statement on Wednesday. If this measure is overturned, we would lose an essential transparency standard to track dangerous climate pollution and a vital tool to hold states accountable for spending taxpayer dollars in ways that accelerate the climate crisis. Evergreen Action State Program Director Justin Bollock said in a statement. Now, that is very interesting, right? Because they're having to spend money to hold states accountable, right? Like to curb climate emissions, right? They're sitting there griping about spending money, and we're spending that money in a deficit. What sense does that make, right? They're worried about holding states and companies accountable, right? Like this goes to a story I done a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was last week, about Maine wanting to be able to sue fossil fuel companies for climate change damage, right? Like damage to roads, right? This, you look at it, we went over this logically and debunked it pretty much in that video. And I pretty much came to the conclusion that this is just communism with the Green New Deal face, right? Or Green New Deal mask put onto it. It's just communistic rule, like take from the rich, right? Because that's all they were wanting to do is sue these fossil fuel companies, make them pay for new roads, new electrical poles, and what have you, all kinds of different things, right? Like it's just communism. You take from the rich and give to the government. That's not how, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is supposed to work. That's not how our founders envisioned a capitalist system, right? It's not controlled by the government, which is ruled by tyranny, if you ask me. But these people are just outright insane. We can't let them push us into some sort of climate change BS. Their crap that they're putting in electric cars, and they want solar panels. None of it freaking works, right? And it's only proven to make us more poor, right? You tax gas taxes and emissions taxes and all this other stuff only makes us more poor and doesn't help the environment at all, right? Like they got that carbon tax BS or whatever, that you can pay X amount of money to offset the amount of carbon emissions you put out, right? How does that help the climate? What do they do with that money to actually remove carbon dioxide or, fix the atmosphere? Like, they don't tell you what they're doing with all this stuff. You go look at their freaking website, and they spew all this kind of crap about how we're damaging the planet, but they don't tell you what they do with that money, right? They have employees that they pay, right? Why would you want to pay because your gas puts out emissions? I mean, your car puts out emissions of carbon dioxide. Why would you want to pay a company that says that they're working toward environmental friendly solutions to our climate agenda, right? Why would you want to pay them money?
Like, they're not helping the climate whatsoever, right? These companies aren't doing research into carbon capture. They're not doing research on how to remove some of this carbon dioxide and make the environment better for everybody else. They're not trying to figure out ways how to make gasoline-powered cars not put out so much carbon dioxide. They're not doing any of that stuff. They're not doing any kind of research on any way to fix the environment. They're just making you pay for the emissions that your car put out, or if you have a jet, right, like a private jet or something like that, or if you fly, right, you have to pay a tax. It's just all ridiculous BS meant to take money from the wealthy and give to them, right? Like, it's not the Robin Hood thing, take from the wealthy and give to the poor, which is technically wrong. You can't really do that. That is called theft, right? But if you willingly give them your money, you're only empowering the BS that they're spouting, right? It's just all a bunch of crap, if you ask me, right? Like, I think we need to take a logical approach to this. How about let's figure out a way we can innovate our way out of this climate crisis, right? So-called crisis, right? But it's not really a crisis. Yes, we need to do something about the carbon emissions. I'm totally down with that. I'm just not down with their climate agenda and, making poor countries suffer because we're compassionate about the environment, right? Like, I don't care about your compassion. Let's use logic to figure out a way out of this problem and find actual solutions that work, right? Like, wind farms don't work. Yeah, they give power, but it's not always windy, right? Like solar panels, yeah, they work when it's sunny. You can't implement this all over the world because some places are constantly cloudy, like the upper northwest coast, right? Like, try putting solar panels on your house in Seattle. You won't get much return. And you know what? Damn it, I was supposed to talk about the Senate tabling the Mayorkas impeachment. But, I'm running kind of long on this one, so we're gonna save that for another day, folks. That's all I got for this one. I want you guys to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. What do y'all think about their Green New Deal that these climate religious zealots are trying to force upon everybody, right? Like the Biden administration, this guy doesn't care. He only cares about winning more votes. That's why he's paying off student loans. And that's why he's so hardcore on this climate agenda, because he knows that his base, that's what they're all about, right? Their toxic compassion that damages people's lives, right? That damages the poor people in this country and in the entire world, right? Like, stopping a developing nation from developing, that to me is a travesty. And, nobody should be able to stop that. If that country wants a loan to build a coal power plant because it's the cheapest and easiest way to lift themselves out of poverty, then why not do it, right? Like, we can figure out ways to make that coal power plant not pollute the earth so damn badly, right? Like, let's put money into figuring a way out of this instead of just, giving it to these companies that don't really care about the climate, that can't claim to care, but they just want to take your money and act like they're virtue signaling all the time, or they are virtue signaling, act like they're trying to fix the planet, and then just virtue signaling. That's what I meant to say, but it came out all wrong. But y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. I sure do appreciate it, you guys. And y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.